example module test, and within here, there's a ridiculous while loop in here, where the statement is that it puts every the figures into an array and it increments, and 200,000 is a lot in this while loop. And so what execprof is doing is pointing out how ridiculous this part of this code is. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to comment out this part of the code and introduce something that we know is going to be faster. So as you can see, we're only doing 20 for this. And if I go back to here, I reload the home page, click on XHprof output. I'm going to do exactly the same thing. So sort by exclusive wartime, and you can see that my custom function is no longer on top. And if I decide to search for it in here, you can see that it's only taken 25 microseconds to execute compared to the old one where it took over 165,000. So using XHprof can help you pinpoint where you've gone wrong in your functions or where you could actually improve on it. And you can also click into the function and see its parent function. So I had the hookinit function that calls the example module test, and you can see that it actually displays its parent function. And of course, if you go into this as well, it displays the parent function of that function, and it just keeps on. You can just keep on going into it in different levels. So this is just basically how you can use XHprof. Is there more to it? Yes. There's a feature in XHprof that you could use to compare your different run times. So let's say you want to, you have a code, you have a block of code, and then you've changed it, and you want to see if what you did is actually better. You could use this feature to compare if it's made an improvement or not. And in order to display this, what it does is any figures that are in green means that you've made an improvement. Any figures in red means that you haven't made an improvement, and it's possibly that it's even worse. So in order to compare both runs, you can just add in the first run and the second run. And a tip about XHprof is you should only enable it when you need it. The reason why you need to do this is because when you first set up XHprof, it will give you a temporary folder of where you want to store all these XHprof run IDs. And this is what it looks like. It's not really clear, but basically, you have a temporary folder, and each of these files are your XHprof runs. So over a period of time, this can get bigger and bigger and bigger, because each time you run an XHprof ID, it gets stored in there. So it's good over a period of time to delete some of these files when you feel you don't need them anymore. Of course, this has nothing to do, this doesn't affect your site performance at all, but this is just, I don't think you want to see this kind of thing in your temporary file. So what I'm going to do is to show you a live demo of how you can compare two different runs. So we have, go back here. So we have the first one that we did with the 20,000 in the statement, and we have the second here, which was only 20. So what I'm going to do now is just create a new tab for this. So in here, I'm going to put run 1 equals to the first one, and run 2 equals to the second run ID. So what you could see here is the comparison between the two different situations that we had. It's all green, which means that it's made a massive improvement. You can see it's made an improvement of over 188 in terms of the war time, the memory, and other things as well. And of course, you can click, if you just want to see the improvement on that certain function, you can click on it, and it shows you there, and it shows you the differences that you've made here. So with this kind of tool, you can actually find out if you've made good improvements on your code or not. And it has another feature as well, XHprof. There's something called call graphs. So call graphs, or in this term, graphies, basically means graph visualization software. And what it does is that it helps you to, it displays the same kind of output, but in a visual representation kind of way, so that it's easier for you to focus. And what it does is that it helps you to shows you the bottlenecks in terms of where what functions would take too long, or how these functions are actually executed. It also shows you, so the red box, each of these input boxes represent a function, and the red box means that's the main problem on your site in terms of the function. The yellow boxes represent the path of how this function has been executed. So each of these functions here are parent functions for your bottleneck function. And in order to install this, or to see this kind of, or to get this kind of software, you just need to do the usual install in terms of bool install or apt-get install. And that's basically what you have to do just to get it on here in your system. So I can quickly do a live demo on that as well. So over here, we have the ridiculous while loop. And if I click on view full call chat, you can see that it's using or displaying our function as a bottleneck in this case. And it shows us several times in there as well. And it's also listed the parent of it as well, so you know what functions have been called in order to get here. And then if I do the same for this run ID, where the while loop was only 20 rather than 200,000, you will notice that you will notice that you will notice that your function, the example module test function, is no longer there, because it's no longer seen as a bottleneck after that change that we made. So this is just pointing out XHprof, even if it's a contrib module or a core module or anything like that, it still states out what function is the bottleneck. So with this, just a quick summary of XHprof is that it helps you show reports in terms of the functional level on calls. It shows the war time and so on. It gives you a visual representation of where the bottleneck could be, and it also helps you to know what functions have called what other functions, so in terms of the structure. So what I'm going to do now is move on to another tool called APC. And what this does is that it focuses more on PHP optimization, PHP code optimization. So without APC, what Drupal does is it gets the PHP script, parses it, compiles it, executes it, and then gives the output. But with APC, because when it gets cached, it skips the process of parsing and compiling, and instead it just executes an output. So this can actually save time for Drupal to execute this code. And APC stores everything in your RAM, so it leaves your database alone. It's database hassle-free. And when you're setting up APC and you allocate memory to it because it stores it in a RAM, if the memory that you've allocated to APC is not enough, what it does is it removes old cache data so that it can fit in the new cache data. So in order to go around this kind of problem, all you need to do is just increase the memory that you've allocated to APC. And then the two things in APC called hit and miss. So hit basically means that Drupal has found and pulled information from APC cache. Miss means Drupal did not find anything cached in APC and therefore it had to pull the information from the database. So doing another demo, I'm going to show you where hit and miss is going to display this information. But this is how APC handles caching. This caching. I can quickly go onto Memcache as well. Memcache is quite the same. Yeah, it's the same. It stores its memory in RAM. It removes all cache data if there's not enough allocated memory to it. It adds more of a replacement for your database cache table. So it caches SQL query, and it can help improve your page load performance because it's leaving your database alone and caching all its data into the RAM of your PC or of your server. So I'm just going to quickly show you what it looks like. So over here, I have the APC UI, and it shows the versions. It shows the PHP versions. It shows how much files have been cached. It shows the amount of hits, amount of misses, and user cache information, and some other things, including the amount of memory that you've allocated to APC. And over here, just a visual representation of how much memory. You could ignore this part. For some reason it come up properly. And the percentage of hits and misses. And over here is just a quick list of files that has been cached, the amount of hits, the amount of sizes, and so on. In per directory is just the upper level where it just caches everything that is in this directory, so it shows the number of files and other information that you can get from there. User cache entries is completely different. So there is something called APCU, which is APC user cache. And what this does is that it caches user variables or variables into the system. So the kind of values it caches are these kind of values, variables. Because it's more of an extension. APCU is an extension that you could use with APC. And then what I'm going to quickly show you is Memcache. So over here, we have the Memcache statistics. And bin basically represents the cache tables. So I could open it here as well. So here it lists all the cache tables that have been cached in Memcache. So for example, we have cache bootstrap, which is here, and then the key represents the values within that cache table. So for example, over here we have cache bootstrap variables, and that is in here. So this Memcache basically just shows you what has been cached and what tables has been cached, and also the microseconds, which is how long it's taking Memcache to draw information from these tables. And operations are basically just cache operations like cache get and so on. And over here we have the total hit. So at the moment there's 100%, which means that every information that has been cached in Memcache, there's no misses, which means there is no data that has been pulled directly from the database, because everything has been cached in Memcache. And then over here, under reports, Memcache statistics, it just shows different things such as the uptime, how many connections, and so on. You can even go more detail into that and see more information. And then there's something called evictions. So if you recall when I said APC or Memcache will pull out old data to fit in new data, this is how you can tell, this is what you use to tell if how many files has been pulled out. So if that's over 0, then that means that you do not have enough allocated memory to Memcache. So all you need to do is just increase the Memcache memory, the memory allocated to Memcache. You can also, if you prefer displaying these results in the terminal, what you could do is you could just connect to mine, and then just write stats, and it lists you basically the same thing on this screen. So that's basically how you can integrate APC and Memcache to help you with performance. So I'm going to quickly cover some simple caching, views, panels. Well, views, when you create a view or when you edit a view, there's an option where you can just cache, and you can actually set a time-based cache to it. Same thing for panels as well. And then blocks and CSS and JS aggregation, all of that can be done through the backend. Other tips and techniques. Notices. When you're coding, you may see notices as well. So it's best to fix them, because each of this information gets logged into your database, which you don't want. So the best you can fix them, you should fix them. Or you can use syslog, which is another module that helps you log information into a file. So you disable database login module, which is the default module provided by Drupal, and you use syslog to log the information in files rather than in the database. And then you can disable and remove unused modules. This is because the hook functions in every module will get executed. So what's the point of having a module that you don't need enabled on your site? You might as well disable it and remove it. And then you can update existing modules, update your contributor modules, because the Drupal developers for contributor modules would sometime update their code to handle performance issues. So you can update that. And the last one is to turn off any Drupal modules on the production side, because you don't actually need them. Here are some installation and configuration for three different types, and some references, and that's all I have. Any questions?
Yes, something I've never understood. If you have a large MySQL buffer pool, then why is it also still useful to cache data using Memcache? Do they do the same job, or do they do something different?
I think they do something different. Memcache mostly stores SQL query results, but I think the buffer does something else, which I'm not entirely sure. But I think in this, maybe we can ask the audience, play a little Who Wants to Be a Millionaire kind of game. So, does anybody know an answer to that question?
Memcache is just key value pairs, so what you choose to put into it is entirely up to you.
So I mean, like your variables. So all of your variable gets are going to come from that Memcache. Massively quicker than having to go back to the database every time. For a single value group.
I assume a large buffer pool means less pauses in the data outputs.
Thank you for that. Any other questions?
Does APC still have a use in PHP 5.5?
Opcache is maybe by default, isn't it?
Because 5.5 uses end opcache. I don't know, is it a kind of
APC
technology?
Yeah, I think it's anything less than 5.5.
Right.
Yeah.
So
APC is not supported in 5.5 and
Yeah.
never will be. So
Right.
you're going to have to change sooner or later.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
I was going to ask you, have you compared APC with Opcache? Any chance to see what
I
difference?
haven't compared both of them, but I think Opcache may do a better job at it, just because, once again, and again, it's good to keep up to date because it supports 5.5. But in terms of the comparison, I haven't looked into that.
I'm not sure whether Opcache provides a front end like APC, but maybe it does.
Yeah, it does.
I think it
So
does,
it is
yeah.
a GUI, but it's another
Okay.
module.
With the graphics stuff that you were showing and it highlighting the bottlenecks, is there any way to tell it to ignore particular aspects of the code? So, for example, the Memcache stuff is maybe as optimized as you can get it, if it's still identifying that as the bottleneck rather than something in your code that you'd be more interested in.
I don't think you can let XHProf do that, but the main reason is just to point to you the worst functions that could be causing your site to go down or to be slow.
Yeah, so it'd be more a matter of, I guess, looking through the listing and just finding the code that you're responsible for.
Yeah, or you could do that ordering of your functions, so you can order by exclusive wartime and so on, and then if your function is one of the ones that makes your site slow, then you can always tweak that.
Yeah.
But in terms of the focusing mainly on your functions, I'm not sure, I don't think there's a possibility for that.
Okay.
It's not really so much a question for you, it's a question for Dan up the back there. Do you know if the XHF prof is working okay in Vlad? Is it quite quick and is it good?
Yeah, it's there and it works. We had some problems with it recently because we broke it,
Right.
and then we fixed it again when we put in the multi-OS support. We eventually forced it up.
I had a problem with XHProf.
We fixed it again, but we're changing it again soon because we want to use the new version of XHProf GUI,
Right.
which isn't that version. There's a later
No,
version
so
we want to use to demonstrate.
yes, so there's another
which
version
is a little
called
bit easier to interpret and look nicer looking
Yeah,
mouse, and you've
yeah.
got more options for features for sorting and zeroing in on what it is.
Yeah.
you're fine.
So there's
But
another.
that's on our to-do list at the moment, but currently it does work. I
So
only just started trying to use it myself personally recently, and that's when I found out that
Yeah.
it was working.
Just one thing about VDD just now is I've used that, there's no XHProf on it, so
Right.
probably going to switch to Vlad.
Yeah, no, it's there, it's all good, and it's about to get better.
One thing I noticed though with XHProf, you have to disable XHProf to use XDebug.
Oh,
Or-
really?
yeah,
I've not tried
because
that.
if you have both of them enabled, it will just always go to XHProf, and you'll never be able to do any breakpoints.
Right. Issue, please.
But they both work. But I think that works as expected, to be honest.
Can you file that anyway, just in case Phil's got something up his sleeve?
Yeah, cool.
Any other questions? Thank you.